Another disappointing loss for the Crimson Tide up in Norman, Oklahoma to a team that just became bowl eligible. Hampton, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's dive into it.
Welcome to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast where Hampton, Chase, and Graham break down all things college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They had to win this game.
There's a problem.
This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my guts tell me.
I genuinely could not believe it.
You don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
That is a stat there, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pigskin Cafe. If you're new here, this is just a podcast of several friends. You just saw Hampton taking a very deep breath, trying to be measured. I think this makes for what we might call a good podcast, but a really hard one to talk about because the Alabama Crimson Tide had everything in front of them, had everything to play for. They go to Norman, Oklahoma to play a team that is 5-6, needs to win to be bowl eligible, like I said in the intro. And the Crimson Tide, instead of going and taking care of business, looked shaky from the start, didn't look composed at all. And I would say really for the second time this year, looked like they did not practice and have no idea how they showed up to the moment that they're in. Just completely flabbergasted at the position they've put themselves in. And so there's a lot to talk about here. And so, Hampton, I think the best way to probably tackle this, and if you're a listener, I hope this benefits you, is let's talk about what we feel like is at the peak of this mountain. It's probably something that has been a reoccurring theme, but let's dive straight into it. And then we can kind of talk all the way down to, a Ryan Williams touchdown getting called back because he stepped out of bounds, and then another one getting called back for a really bad penalty. So just, again, let me just clarify. This is not one of those podcasts where we say that's why we lost the game. No, this team, they got whooped, but just there were some other wrinkles in the game that just, you're going to play away. You've got to come and not you got to come ready to play, and you got to make it decisive. So those moments pop up, those mistakes, those calls that just simply don't go your way. They don't. They're not a detriment to your team. So Hampton, I really just want to toss the ball in your court, and just let you kind of talk for a little bit about this Alabama football team that has now, I would say, for the second time this year, looked utterly helpless. What'd you make of it?
Man, utterly helpless is a very, very, very good way to describe what we saw last night in Norman, Oklahoma. And I'm going to just put this caveat out there for everybody. Before you go, putting stuff in the comments section, before we get any blowback, I want to say this was a total team loss. From the head coach all the way down to left bench, everybody played pretty poorly in this game on Saturday. There's no doubt about that, and there's plenty of blame to go around. But ladies and gentlemen, today the gloves are coming off because Jalen Milroe is who we said he was. This has been a reoccurring thing since last year. It happened against Tennessee this year. You saw glimpses of it versus South Carolina. And then when he had a great game against LSU, everything was fixed. Everything was euphoria. The offense was clicking now. Oh, we're rolling. Now Jalen Milroe's a top 10 draft pick. Hey, how about this, everyone? Maybe Jalen Milroe wasn't hurt against Tennessee and South Carolina. Maybe, just maybe, he struggled with the same things that he has struggled with his entire career against South Carolina and Tennessee are the same things that he struggled against last night in Norman, Oklahoma. He did not do well in the read option game at all. There were multiple times throughout that game. Go ahead.
To call that to even classify what was happening last night is a read. There was no reading going on.
It was a predetermined thing.
Keep going. I mean, that's where we were at. It's like we can't even run the read option with this guy right now.
And I know there's a lot of heat on Nick Sheridan, and I think some of it rightfully so.
Yeah.
I didn't love the play calling last night, but it's very hard when the core central component of your offense, a lot of it is built around Jalen Milroe and the quarterback run game. And when he is not executing simple stuff, it makes your offense very, very, very difficult to be efficient. It just does. Like not the first drive, because the first drive they went 3 and out. Who had that on their bingo card? I did. That on the second drive, they're moving the ball a little bit. It's I believe it's third or second and 2. He makes a poor read on the option play. The end stays home. He keeps it instead of trying to put his foot down and get up in there and get a yard or two, or at least at the very worst, get back to the line of scrimmage. What does he do? He tries to outrun him to the outside, and he loses 4 or 5 yards. That happened repeatedly in the first half. It simply can't happen. And it's basic stuff. You want to know why he looked so great against LSU? It's because they took a lot of that decision-making off his hands. A lot of the success that he had in that game was due to it being QB designed runs. And it also had to do with the gaps and the holes that he was running through being Red Sea open wide. Like I said at the time, the difference in why he looked so good against certain teams running the ball versus a team with an elite defense is because he's not decisive enough when there's junk in front of him. As far as being able to set a guy up, put his foot in the ground, and get at that tough yard, he's not going to do that. Now, if there's a wide open space where it's calling his name, he's going to run and look like the belle of the ball. It's been his story for 2 years. And Alabama fans, I'm saying this lovingly, you keep falling for the same parlor trick over and over and over again. It is who he is at this point in his career. It is who he is. So you have that in the running game, which is bad enough. In the passing game, yes, he was not helped out by his receivers at times during that game. There's no doubt about it. There were terrible drops at key times. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. But to act like I've heard a lot of people criticize the offensive line and act like he was just in duress in pass protection, like when he was back there passing the ball. The only time that he got in real duress was when we had to throw the ball, and they knew we had to throw the ball later in the game. Any defense worth their salt is going to tee off on your quarterback when they know you're in a passing situation, and our offensive tackles are not built for that. So this whole notion that just he was constantly under duress and he had no opportunity and no chance, come on, stop with that malarkey right now, please. Then another thing was, wasn't it crazy how in the LSU game you could see the demeanor that Jalen Milroe had? He looked composed. He looked confident in the plan. The first play of the game, they run a quarterback draw. C.J. Dupree misses his block, and Danny Stutzman pops him. All right, Jalen Milroe was very skittish of contact after that point because there were multiple times during that game, like I mentioned earlier, he could have put his foot in the ground and gone up and gotten a tough yard or two. You're 6'2", 230 pounds. Use that to punish somebody at some point instead of just being able to run free and when no one's tackling you. I mean, come on, dude. Like, use your God-given strength and God-given build to get tough yards. It's not good enough. Then, let's talk about the interceptions. Because the first one, I will give you a little bit of a pass. Because Kobe Prentice did an awful job trying to block there on that wide receiver screen. There's no doubt about it. But guess what, everyone? The reason that they had to throw that wide receiver screen is because I'm pretty sure on the play prior, Alabama had been running the ball pretty successfully. But then, again, they run a play kind of like an inverted veer where he has to read the defensive tackle. The defensive tackle stays home. What does Jalen Milroe do? He keeps it. He loses 2 yards instead of handing it to Richard Young, who could have gotten around the edge and gotten a few yards. So you're in a passing situation. The guy's right there. He's clearly beaten. You throw it anyway. Then the next drive, you throw a high school bad level interception. You stare down and predetermine your read before you even diagnose the defense at the snap. The guy is clearly running over to that zone, and you literally throw it right to him. And then on top of that, He's running down the sideline. You jog your butt over there and don't even try to tackle him. You do this little slide like you try to trip him. I'm telling you right now, Chase Haney, if I was Kalen DeBoer, he would have been benched right then because that was inexcusable effort. All he did was run over there for show. If you're fighting and competing your butt off to try to win the game, you tackle that guy. For heaven's sake, Tua Tagovailoa has had 5 concussions at this point or whatever, and he tried to make a tackle on a pick he threw 2 or 3 weeks ago. And Jalen Milroe is a lot bigger than him, and you going to slide and not even give a full-hearted effort? It's just terrible at this point. Then his demeanor on the sideline sucks like it has in every other game when he's playing bad or when the team's playing bad, because here's what I came to the realization of, Chase, and then I'm going to let you, we can talk more about Jalen Milroe because I think there's a lot more to dive into. But what I came to the realization last night when I was in the shower, he is the definition of a front runner. When everything is going well, there ain't nobody better. There ain't nobody going to do his little dance and do all that and showboat. There's nobody better. And the team, I think, is like that in a lot of ways. But the minute that adversity strikes, he crumbles like a cheap tent. And that in and of itself is a major issue. And yes, I will end with this and then kick it back to you. I skirted around it against Tennessee. But I'm telling you right now, last night, he should have been benched. I don't care that he's the lead. I know he's the leader of your team or whatever. What we saw last night was unacceptable. 11 of 26 for 160 yards and negative yards rushing. Give me a break. I am sorry. I'm ready for him to move on and us to get past this era, because the same people that have told me this guy's a top 10 quarterback in the country explain that performance away and explain the Tennessee performance and the Michigan performance last year and the Texas performance. It's always somebody else's fault but number 4 in Crimson.
Hampton, I don't know if I've ever been this disappointed, this frustrated. The word hopeless comes to mind, but that sounds like an overreaction just due to some of this team's success. The frustration is very real for this team. And what I mean by that is I've never seen or even heard of a team that has been so bad one weekend and could be anyone in the country the next weekend. And that, to me, feels like there's something that is going with the wind or with the waves, is just rising with them and falling with them. That I've told you guys, and I mentioned this during the game, before the game got really ugly and out of hand, I was just saying I am so ready for the Jalen Milroe era to be over. And that sounds so critical and so harsh. I'm just tired of it. I am so tired of it. And the that I'm talking about is the limiting performance that we have at quarterback. I'd be willing to bet, and I know this hasn't been like officially confirmed, if you're Isaiah Bond right now, you made the right decision.
100%.
If you're Caleb Downs right now, I think you're pretty satisfied with your decision.
Yep.
We're getting into the territory where we've got to start thinking about, I don't know who we're trying to satisfy by keeping him starting. Last night we hit the point where I'm thinking Ryan Williams is going to be in Austin, Texas, or in Columbus, Ohio, if something doesn't change. Because here's the fear, is that he's playing at such a bad level. If we're talking about benching him, I don't know why he would go to the NFL. He's going to try to come back to Alabama. And this program has, it sounds weird to say suffered enough, but has not.
Pull the plug.
Dude, there's just not been any consistency out of him at that position. Here's just to make sure we're all talking the same stats right now. And Hampton, I know you know these, but just listeners, if you haven't heard this.
Bring him up.
Last night, Jalen Milroe, 11 completions out of 26. It would surprise you to think that he had more completions than the other quarterback, and the other team whooped our butt. Jackson Arnold, 9 completions out of 11. So Jalen Milroe completes 11 completions for 164 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Hampton, are you really trying to make, like you as in a plural, are we really trying to make the argument that we don't have another quarterback on our bench that can't go 11 for 26 for 160 yards and 3 interceptions? There's nobody else on our team that can give us. Bray Hubbard played high school quarterback, and I guarantee he would have given us a better chance to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to running. Okay, so not only does he suck up, he touches the ball every play. Jim Miller, who I thought played an okay performance in the sense of we had nothing that we could do besides try to give this ball coming out of halftime. The lack of urgency on some of the play calling, and I know we can go back to why is Nick Sheridan having to call the type of plays he is. I agree with that, but
we can get into that conversation.
We ate up the clock like we were ahead. We just had nothing else that we could call, but let's keep moving. He gets 12 carries for 45 yards. We'll say that he did okay. Jalen Milroe, 15 carries for 7 yards. That tells you all that you need to know. And I saw him lay down like you were talking about. I've never seen someone, I think, struggle with what their identity is as a quarterback and then not improve on their weaknesses. The weaknesses have been clear since he's gotten here. And Hampton, I want to just say this. We're in dangerous territory. And I heard people saying it. This is the first time that I've agreed. Not like, hey, that's a good chip on our shoulder. The dynasty's over. This dynasty is over. And it's probably been over for longer than we thought, but we were holding on to some hope. This was it. I don't think if you play this game next week, like if we're playing in Auburn, I don't even know if they rush the field on us. That's how bad this team has become. Here's what I'll say, and I've said this to you guys before, and Hampton, we can just kind of keep this conversation kind of going back and forth. I've said that the two most decisive moments in Alabama football to a detriment, the two biggest mistakes that we've made, number one, if you could just go back, like just hindsight 2020, I'm not saying that in the present moment we knew we were making a mistake and we made it anyways. First one was whenever Steve Sarkisian was our offensive coordinator, not having Nick Saban retire and letting Sarkisian take over the realm, let him keep this train going. Again, hindsight's 2020 on that one. I'm not mad about that. If you could go back.
You said that at the time, though.
Yes.
Credit to you. You said that at the time.
Yeah. And I say that even more confidently now. Last night, I really began to question whether Kalen DeBoer is our guy. And I'm not saying he's a bad football coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be a 9-3, 8-4 kind of coach. But that's not going to cut it to the position he just accepted. Losing games like that. That's the biggest problem, is losing games like Vanderbilt and losing games like Oklahoma. We're losing to people that are trying to become bowl eligible. We had every reason to show up to that game, and Oklahoma showed up more excited to be there.
They were.
They had nothing to play for. They were trying to play in the Texas Bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl, and it got me questioning yesterday, do we have the right guy who can handle – because when I saw coaches coming out from LSU coming out onto the field, here goes this emotional roller coaster of, yeah, we did the thing. We beat the team, in their place. And then the next week, we can't get the boys ready. It looks like we haven't even practiced. And Hampton, I'll end with this, and this is the second part of this. The second mistake that Alabama's program has made in the past 15, 16 years is this right here. Is that Drake May should be in Crimson Tide. He should be in Crimson. What happened was Jalen Milroe was committed to Texas. And Hampton, I might need you to help me just make sure I get the exact details here right. He's committed to Texas. Yep. Quinn Ewers was committed to Ohio State as a high school, I think, junior. And when he flipped his commitment to Texas as a 5-star, Milroe being a 4-star, not that stars really matter, but Milroe saw the writing on the wall. He flips to Texas. At that point, Drake May, around that time, maybe just a little bit before, had flipped from Bama to North Carolina. And he was Sarkisian's guy, just like the guy from Duncanville that we've got. Like, he picked him out early and saw his rank then develop higher and higher and higher. He goes to North Carolina, stays there. We then take a commitment from a guy that I don't think we were very high on at all in that class, and who's now been here with us going on 2 years. It might even be a third. And he has just continued to drive this program into this place to where we're one-dimensional. And I think it's the biggest mistake that we've made is that it would have been, look at just the progression if you would have had him come in after Bryce
Yeah.
Young. Drake May was going to be a top 10 pick to the Patriots. That's what we were expecting. That's what we had, and this is what we missed on. And so, Hampton, with that, what I think I want to just spend a little bit of time on is kind of like a where do we go from now? But where does Milroe go from now? Like, what is our plan? And how about this? Let's that's our next question. Let's just talk about a little bit more of the game specifically before we move on.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more, maybe defense, coaching. Like, you go with the etc. outside of Milroe on why we lost this football game.
So we'll go offense, and then I'll touch on the defense. So offensively, I didn't hate the plan, especially early. I feel a lot of it was just mis-execution, whether it be like I talked about Jalen Milroe not reading the option play properly. I talked about the drops. The drops weren't good. The offensive line wasn't dominant in the running game, 100%. But it's an inherent issue with the offense, because I even talked about on the pod last week, the solo pod that I did. I knew this wasn't going to be an easy game. I knew that Oklahoma's defense was suited, especially with a week to prepare, and Brent Venables being a defensive mastermind, that our offense would struggle. I knew it because it is like clockwork. Just like I knew they struggle against Tennessee. Just like South Carolina didn't completely shock me. Because after the Tennessee game, I think the brain trust at Alabama was like, okay, we came out against Tennessee and tried to throw it 44 times. And for good reason, by the way, because Georgia did the exact same thing against Tennessee last week, and you saw the success that they had. But the issue was Milroe was airmailing throws left and right, and you had no shot against Tennessee. So after that game, I think they internally said, we're going to be a run-heavy football team. For better or for worse, that is what we're going to be. And in the first half, you saw that against Oklahoma. They ran it 16 times, and Alabama threw it 7, because that is the identity. The issue with that identity, though, is when it is stopped. And guess what? If you had the personnel and you had the scheme to stop it, and especially Venables being a very top 5 defensive mind in college football, then you're up the creek without a paddle. You don't have a counter. And so everyone's complaining about continually running Milroe, and I get it. It's like running your head into a brick wall, or banging your head into a brick wall and expecting the brick to break. But guess what, guys? There's not many counters that Alabama has at their disposal, because Jalen Milroe is limited, and he has not been nearly as accurate on his deep ball as he was last year, or even early parts of this year. So when you have those set of circumstances, I don't know what you call as an offensive coordinator. And again, I thought they did a good job coming out of half, and they were like, all right, we're going to try to establish the running game slowly but surely. And they weren't ripping off 10 to 15-yard gains, but maybe 5 here, 3 here, 8 here. But then the minute that you have a negative play, you're screwed. Because then you're in second long again, third and long again. And the 2 times that you were put in that situation, you trust your quarterback, who is a senior, who has 20-plus starts over his belt, and what does he do? He throws 2 picks, one being a pick 6, and then one they return it to the 10-yard line. I mean, what do you want him to do? Okay? And then on top of all these Milroe issues, which again have been the same issues for the past 2 or 3 years, no matter who the personnel is, who the offensive coordinator is, Alabama always has the same issues, but fans want to blame everybody else but the quarterback. Makes no sense to me. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. But then when you have receivers dropping balls, it's just, and we talked about this earlier in the year, when one bad thing happens, it's like an avalanche with this team.
Oh my gosh.
And everything starts getting affected. There's no one stepping up and making a play other than Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams dropped a ball early in the game, but then what did he do? He came back and caught one that it could have been a touchdown, but he stepped out of bounds. Then he makes a circus catch on the plays of the officials completely screwed up, but he kept competing. He kept fighting. But other than that, who else had a great game on offense? Nobody. And
Well,
I know
our
people talk
backup
about
tight
Parker.
end, who was like,
Huh?
now all of a sudden, I said our backup tight end, who all of a sudden we found this wrinkle in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cuevas,
yeah.
Cuevas had a couple good catches, for sure.
I'm
And
trying to find something. I'm trying to help us out. I'm like, that's the only person that I was like, hey, I didn't know that you even played for, Alabama, and then, hey, way to catch a
he
couple
made
balls.
he made a nice little one-handed catch.
Mhm.
It was definitely more dependable than CJ Dupree. CJ Dupree had an awful game last night. He's been good most of the year. I don't know what was going on with him. The only other positive I have on offense is I got crap on BOL, and I've gotten crap from other people saying Richard Young deserves to see first team reps. Well, the coaching staff agreed, everyone, and he got out there. He didn't get a carry, but at least they saw that he deserved a little run with the first team with what he's shown the past few weeks, barring it was in mop-up duty, but still, offensively, it was just a mess. And again, I think play calling could have gotten better because tendency breaking play calling needs to be more of a thing because Alabama definitely has their tendencies of when they're in this situation, they're going to call this. When they're in this formation, it's going to be this. And I can call it from my couch. But also, I'm not ready to fire Nick Sheridan because it's kind of hard to call plays with a quarterback that is this limited. And the last point on the offense, and then I want to get your thoughts on the defense, and then we can kind of bounce off that and then talk about kind of where we go from here. Do you remember like week 3 or week 4? Kalen DeBoer, I believe it was on an SEC teleconference call, got asked about his offense this year. And he said that there was a large majority of the offense that they would not run and that they did not implement this year due to personnel. And I said on this show, to me, that was about Jalen Milroe. But a lot of people said, no, it's about the offensive line and that personnel. I'm thinking it's becoming more and more apparent. It's about the quarterback under center as to why the offense is so limited. But defensively, Chase, and you can feel free to give any more thoughts you have on the offense. But defensively, my overall thoughts were not great, not a great showing by any means, but they really only gave up 10 points. To me, the offense is much more to blame. What say you, man?
Yeah, I mean, just before we move on the offense, I do, dude, the theme of this team snowballs. It's like Ryan Williams diving on that punt on the 1 yard line. Like, that's just not
bad.
That's what is bringing that out of our players? Just the hesitation, the in the moment, oh man, I wasn't thinking, but I was thinking that it's just, I don't know what it is about this team and I would be willing to say that specifically since we've had Jalen Milroe at quarterback, that kind of anxious culture that either leads to pure confidence that we can overcome something or deafening fear that we are completely consumed with the challenge at hand and there's not much we can do about it. And I don't know, that culture feels so out of place. And I really hope that that's something that can graduate, that can leave
Agreed.
us, that it hasn't made a permanent impact on, we're like the Dallas Cowboys and everybody expects us to win every single week.
Mm-hmm.
And almost like the pressure of being that is just hard to play around. I just don't know, man. And it really frustrates me that we've put this burden of anxiety on us, it feels like, and I'm just not able to play straight football. And I just don't understand that. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. I will say that it really doesn't help. And this, you can just tell this defense plays, and I think this is Kalen DeBoer's, like, his philosophy is, I'm okay with penalties as long as they're hustling penalties. If we're offside, that's not, but if we're holding, if we're getting PIs, like, hey, we want them to be afraid to come across the ball, like come across the middle with the ball. I'm okay giving up some flags there. What I will say is that kind of hustle and that kind of energy, like exhaustion that comes from playing at just that speed, which I appreciate. We just can't do it when it seems like the offense cannot stay on the field. And so I think that was a big contributor to how the defense ended up maybe in the position that they were multiple times. Again, add in a few picks. I think overall they didn't play. I give them like a C. I'm like, hey, I think that if you get that kind of performance out of your defense, I believe Alabama's supposed to win that game. Here's what I'll say, though, is that this defense, for some reason, dude, and I don't know what it is, for some reason, is just good enough to make them convert on third down multiple times and just sit there and drive the ball down the field, which keeps the defense on longer. It felt like Vanderbilt when it just seemed like they could get the 3rd and 2 every single time that they wanted it. And for us, it was the complete opposite. It was nervousness, anxiousness. So, Hampton, I mean, that's just kind of to tee us up. That's just a theme that I've noticed with this team. It's almost like we like to play with our back against the wall with the end zone behind us. Like our red zone defense, I don't feel like it's horrible, but man, it seems like from their 20 until, our 30, it just seems like we almost just give it to them, and we might as well almost just let them complete a deep ball and get there so that we're still fresh rather than letting them just drive down our throat. Now, I think that Lawson getting hurt, that doesn't help you, but it really did seem like this was heading in the direction of Alabama losing this football game the whole entire time. Maybe they helped slow it down, but even the play where they go for it on 4th down to end the game just shows you how out of reach and how out of touch this team is. So that might just be the primer to get us going, Hampton. Maybe get us into some specifics on how this defensive performance was last night. Maybe how much blame do you assign to that side of the football?
I would say C minus play from them last night. With them having 5 receivers out, Jackson Arnold has struggled to throw the ball all year long. Their offense has been anemic. Even though that it had been getting better in previous weeks, there was a trend upward. You knew that they were going to run the ball. And my issue, I've been very complimentary of Kane Womack and this unit since the Vanderbilt game, and I think it's been warranted with how they have continually stacked performances, stacked games on top of each other. They're continually getting turnovers. Their guys are getting better, being more disruptive, being more confident in what they're asked to do. But I didn't understand their game plan last night, more so than the offensive game plan. Because, I mean, there was a 3rd and 2 at one point in the second quarter where we'd have 3 down linemen and we've got like only 4 or 5 guys in the box defending the run. Like, why? Like, I get your base is 3-3-5, but under Saban, Alabama's base was a 3-4, but they were multiple. They were able to match personnel. Why aren't you matching personnel? Why aren't you going heavier and doing everything you can to stop the run? It's the same. Basically what Oklahoma ran last night was the Vanderbilt offense, but honestly, they ran it more effectively, because the key in that Vanderbilt game was Alabama finally started to slow their running game and their rushing attack toward maybe late second quarter into the fourth quarter when they got exhausted because they were on the field so much. But what killed him against Vanderbilt was Pavia was making plays with his arm. You read off Arnold's stats earlier. He was 9 of 11 for 68 yards. Like, where was that adjustment? That was the thing that I would say was most disappointing from that side of the ball, which is I didn't feel like they put him in the best position to be successful. And then you've got guys who, when you're playing like an option type team or they're running a variation of that, everybody has to play sound, fundamental assignment football. And you didn't have that last night. You had guys kind of almost looked like they were freestyling out there. 2 guys taking 1 guy instead of everybody doing their job. And it was the same thing against Vanderbilt. It looked like they were playing on their heels instead of coming downhill and attacking. Honestly, there was an overall lack of juice. I mean, when Alabama played LSU, they were flying around. They were confident in what they were being asked to do. They were playing with a lot more physicality. Did you see that really at any point last night? I mean, Bray Hubbard came and laid the wood on one kid, and he fumbled it on their first or second drive of the game. Malachi Moore, I thought, played okay. You know, he showed some physicality, but like I didn't see that from many other people. I mean, Jahad Campbell had been a game wrecker for 2 or 3 weeks. I didn't think he particularly played great last night. And then you want to get on the defensive line, but you got 3 down linemen against 5. Like, what do you – I mean, that's not going to work. Like, you got to commit more guys to the box. So, overall, they gave up 10 points on their own. They gave up another 7 because of the first Jalen Milroe pick where they ran it down all the way to 8 or 10. That's a tough position to put the defense in. So I would rather them give up 3 there. I'm not absolving them of blame. Mm-hmm. There's blame for giving up a touchdown there. But, all right, you give them that touchdown. They gave up 17 points. That's good enough. Like that is good enough in SEC football. It wouldn't have, like they would have had to hold them to 0 to win. They would have had to shut them out because of how bad and anemic Alabama's offense was. So if we're doing a blame pie or whatever, defense gets like 20% of the blame, maybe 15 to 20. Offense, to me, deserves the majority of it. Just like when they played Tennessee, I said the same thing, that the offense is the main culprit in this loss.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, I'm like, at the end of the day, how did we not walk away? Like, we couldn't move the ball into field goal range. You know, we couldn't field goal them to death.
One time.
I'm just like, I can't blame that on the defense. I really can't. I just, and I'm not saying they played great. We're not saying, you hear us say C. But I'm just like, we walked away with 3 points. And was that the first drive of the game? If it wasn't the first, it was the second drive. We kicked a field goal. And then after that,
second.
Hampton, my question is like, after that, how do we not make a change at quarterback? And I'll take this approach. And I said this during the Tennessee game.
Mm-hmm.
It is okay. It like you said, Milroe is who he thought he was.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. How do me and you know that sitting here doing a podcast for our friends to listen to and whoever else on the internet wants to listen to it? Like, we know what he is.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just chalk it up to this. Let's just chalk it up to he's having a bad game. Didn't travel well. Didn't sleep well. It's hard to make the long trip over to Norman. How do you not say there's somebody else on our bench that could at least get us 3 points?
Yeah.
And just put in some. What I think I respect about Sarkisian is when he was put in this situation, he put Ewers out for a drive just to give Manning a shot and give Ewers like a shock to, hey,
reset.
This isn't, just reset, man. Lock in. Like, hey, if he takes this and I'm not taking him out if Arch goes out here and starts balling out, but just know we need you. But man, you've got to lock in.
Yep.
I really don't understand, Hampton, how the switch wasn't made at some point. That specifically is what makes me question whether we've got the right guy at head coach.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant segue.
And hey, let's just address this. This question I don't think was asked during the press conference.
It wasn't. Which is an abomination.
That's not asked shows you that there is something don't smell right. Something doesn't smell right. And I'll put on my tinfoil hat. Something doesn't smell right. So just, I don't even know, man. What have you heard? Like, there's no way that, there's nothing that I feel like that could be said that really makes this make sense, but just, what's happening?
So we need to talk about this. We briefly hinted on it versus Tennessee, but we didn't want to go all the way. I am willing to risk it all at this point, fellas. I am willing to risk it all. Like, again, the gloves are off. Here's the issue, because I've seen plenty of people on BOL, Twitter, even some of my good friends who I love and respect very, very much say, well, Ty Simpson's not the guy. Well, guess what? I don't know if he's the guy either. But he deserves an opportunity to see if he's the guy. Like, you know what you've got in one. You know what you have. You don't know what Ty's going to do if you put him in a game. They don't have a lot of tape on him. See what you have.
Yeah.
What's it going to hurt at this point? Because here's another thing that really, really frustrates me is I've seen this argument a lot. Well, Ty couldn't beat out Milroe for 2 or 3 years, so he clearly is not better than him. Last year, I will grant you that fact, okay? But I think it's very telling that after the Texas abomination of a game that was, and I heard from people that I trust very closely that after that game, the film review was even worse than they anticipated for the coaching staff, and that is why a change was made. That is why they put Tyler Buckner in. Now, why did Tyler Buckner go in over Ty Simpson? Because that was Tommy Reese's guy. There's no doubt about that. But you saw that the team did not play for Tyler Buckner. Okay? So what did Nick Saban do? He had to go with Jalen Milroe because the team was behind Jalen Milroe. All right? Then Kalen DeBoer comes in. Before pads were put on for a spring practice, Jalen Milroe was going to basketball games with Kalen DeBoer. He was going on College Game Day with Kalen, going on College Game Day as the Alabama starting quarterback. He put himself in the media and in positions to position himself as a starting quarterback where there was no competition. I remember week 1 of spring practice, they pretty much asked him, and Kalen DeBoer was like, yeah, Jalen Milroe is our starter. Don't tell me that there's a competition if the guy names him the starter after 1 week of ball. That's just, it's predetermined because, again, because of last year, he could point to, well, I got us to the Michigan game. You didn't get us. Jalen Milroe did not get Alabama to the Michigan game. He didn't. He was the starting quarterback, but the reason they got in the Michigan game was because they had an elite defense and because they were able to run the ball really, really well down the stretch last year. And they had a miracle from above in the Auburn game. That's the only time that Jalen Milroe has been super duper clutch in his career, that game, and then the Georgia game the following week. You know, he had those 2 drives consecutively where he made plays. But he was not the cog that got Alabama to that game and got him to that point, but he positioned himself in a manner where there was no doubt who's going to be the starting quarterback this year. I'm not saying Ty Simpson would come in and be the second coming of Tua Tagovailoa, but I have heard from multiple people, and even Josh Pate tweeted this in August, that the coaching staff feels like they can win with Ty Simpson. There's a reason Ty Simpson stuck around and didn't get up and leave when Kalen DeBoer and company came. I think he deserves a shot. I think right now I've heard some people say even after last night, Jalen Milroe gives you the best chance to win. Excuse me? That last night, that performance is our best chance to win? So help me.
Yeah.
I think our best chance to win, if he's our best chance to win, put Richard Young or Justice Haynes or Jan Miller run Wildcat the whole game.
Totally.
Stop the platitude, stop covering for the kid. And look, I want to say this too. We're criticizing his play on the field. I'm not criticizing him as an individual or anything like that. I'm talking about his play on the field. But where you go from here is, even if he wanted to come back next year, Chase, there is no way that you can allow him to be your starting quarterback next year. Because if you do, you're going to lose Ryan Williams. You're going to lose a lot of cats in that receiver room who are not going to want to play with him. And I can't blame him because there is enough talent in that room to have multiple 1,000-yard receivers. But he is not going to make the most of it because Peyton Thorne is a better passer of the football this year than Jalen Milroe. He has better stats. Like, are you kidding me?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So I think we can kind of transition on where Alabama goes from here. I want Ty Simpson to start against Auburn. It's not going to happen because Kalen DeBoer, for one reason or the other, is not going to make the change. That is clear at this point. But after this year, number 4 better not be behind center in Tuscaloosa. It just can't happen. And I think what you're going to see in this offseason is almost a little bit of a mini reset. I think a lot of these guys that have been in the Alabama program for a long time, it's going to be best for them to move on, for Kalen DeBoer to bring in more of his guys and really establish his culture. Because I am not out on Kalen DeBoer. I think he needs time to put in place what he needs to and what he feels is best, whether that be players, whether that be his style of play, culture, whatever you want to call it. He deserves that opportunity because right now I don't think this is the program. I don't think this is his program right now. Like, I feel like it is in almost like a sort of purgatory, like an in-between, a transition, and it's just a muddied mess right now. I still believe in him getting it right. 100% do, but there's a lot of work to be done for that to happen.
I think you're spot on there. I mean, just there's got to be some kind of, and I think the question we have this offseason is what are we going to shift into? Like what is culture going to shift towards? And I'm telling you that last night though made me question whether I think he has. And I'm not ready to fire the guy. I just
It's
don't
fair to have questions,
dude.
after that.
I think the fair criticism is I don't think he can make a hard decision. It really does baffle me. I've yet to, and I really would love to hear. I can't believe that question didn't get asked at the press conference of just what is your rationale? Because if you're loyal to a fault, again, like you said, like we're saying that's our best chance to win as a guy who basically, I can't believe that's not it. There has to be something else there. And what I'll just kind of say too is for him, it's the way he handled Milroe, but the way that we are showing up to these games, I just don't know. And the question was, is he going to be able to compete in the SEC and recruit the South? Like, those were the two big questions. And the answer was, hey, he's a great ball coach. And I think that's still probably true. What I'm afraid of is I don't know if he can go week in and week out and not lose game. Because this is what made him great is he didn't lose games like that. He never lost games like that.
Never.
And
never.
Even if Hampton, let's just be honest for a second. Like, it's at least more, it's more justifiable to lose to LSU last week and then win against Oklahoma this week.
Yeah.
It makes more sense in my head, and I feel like I've got more grace if that's the case. But it being the reverse shows you that there's something fundamentally wrong with how we're practicing, the culture that's there, the way we're prepping for games, and the way that we're motivating our team.
And I think that's a great point because overall, the whole team didn't look prepared. They didn't look ready to go from the jump. And again, it's an apparent and a stark difference that you can recognize immediately. I should never question if Alabama's going to playing hard. Are there going to be days that you're not executing up to the level that you're capable of? Absolutely. You're human. It happens. Everybody has an off day. But the level of fight and the level of intensity, that should never really drop off. Mm-hmm. And at the height of the Saban dynasty, Alabama fans didn't have to question that. The standard was the standard. The standard, there is no standard this year. That is completely lost. And to add to your two more things to add to a couple more points you made. You talked about, it'd be fine if you had told me we had lost to LSU and won this game, that'd be a little more defensible. How about this? If I tell you at the end of the year Alabama's going to be 9-3, but their losses are to Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU, I'm like, year one, I can deal with that. The problem is you lost to Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma, who are going to both be 6-6 probably at the end of this year. That in and of itself is the issue. And you talked about the question that wasn't asked about quarterback change. It wasn't asked directly, but Kalen DeBoer did say he felt that Jalen Milroe was really fighting out there. He saw it in his eyes. If the effort on the pick six was showing that he was fighting, then Kalen DeBoer, you and I need to have a conversation, brother, because that was the epitome of fighting. That in and of itself was quitting.
Those 3 losses are all away. There's something that's not translating when it comes to showing up.
Mental toughness, lack of it.
Yeah. Hampton, where do we go from here? I mean, that's the only thing we have left to talk about is, I mean, the quarterback position. And dude, I mean, I'm really ready. Dude, I would have told you at the beginning of the season, let's cut our losses. Let's lose to Tennessee, LSU, and Georgia. Let's cut our losses, have 3 losses, and hey, you still got a, it's a respectable record. Lose to 3 teams that are better than you. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I'm so ready to cut our losses and be done with this.
I know.
What is, I guess, let me ask it like this. What do you hope will happen? And what you realistically feel like is going to happen? If those 2 are the same, that's okay. But what do you feel like? What do you hope for? And then, where do you feel like this kind of actually lands?
So are we talking about for next week or for in general? Like a big picture?
Dude,
because I'll tell you right now, if we're doing next week, what I would like to happen is Ty Simpson get a shot.
Yeah.
That is what I would like to happen, and I think he deserves to get a shot. And Alabama beat Auburn. That's a good stepping stone for next year. You go into bowl game, get a win with him at starting quarterback. Then you have a little momentum. And you keep everybody who is committed to you right now, get them signed in like 10 days. What's going to happen more than likely is Jalen Milroe is going to start. Jalen Milroe will struggle against Auburn, everybody. I'm telling you right now, because Auburn has a pretty good defense. They're going to be able to stress him in the same ways that Oklahoma did, and we're going to be in the same boat that we were this week. And there's a good opportunity that I don't care that it's in Tuscaloosa. Alabama didn't lose to Auburn in Tuscaloosa when Nick Saban was the coach. All bets are off right now. Auburn can come in. Auburn is fighting for bowl eligibility. You can bet your bottom dollar, with it being the Iron Bowl and with that on the line, they're going to come out and give it everything they got. And I could 100% see Alabama losing that game. And then this season turns into very disappointing to almost catastrophic. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but you have 3 losses to 6-win teams. I don't know. I don't know, man. I think realistically, though, he's not going to bench Jalen Milroe unless I don't know how bad he can play for him to get benched.
Totally.
Because he's played 2 of the worst games I've ever seen by an Alabama quarterback, and nothing has happened to the kid. So I don't know.
Let's talk about next year. I mean, what do you feel like happens next year? And I guess, what do you hope for, and then what do you actually hope happens?
What I hope for next year is, I think, one of 3, Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, and Keelan Russell get the starting quarterback job. Because I think all 3 of those guys fit what Kalen DeBoer wants to do way more than Jalen Milroe ever thought about. I think it's going to be Ty Simpson, because I have a hard time believing. I know Keelan Russell is special. He is going to be an absolute stud. I just don't know if it's going to happen immediately. Starting freshman quarterbacks, it doesn't happen very much across the country. Like DJ Lagway, what he's doing right now is an anomaly, and it's special because it doesn't happen much. I don't know if Keelan's going to come in and take the job, but I feel confident with Ty Simpson. A year of actually getting him reps and getting him experience and building the offense around him, I think Alabama can be right in the thick of playoff contention next year. Make minor adjustments, minor tweaks, but your offensive line is going to be pretty good again, especially with some of the talent you've got coming in. Receiving core, make sure they all stay. Do everything in your power to keep Ryan Williams. Running backs, you should be good. And then defensively, you're super young on defense, especially in the back end. So get a couple guys out of the portal, just supplement individual spots. You may have to retool the coaching staff a little bit, but then be ready to go against a very tough schedule again next year. But I think next year you're going to see a team that emulates more of the Kalen DeBoer style than you saw at any point this year. I truly believe that, and that is what I'm hoping for. Now, it could go off the rails, and it could get ugly quick. But I still believe in Kalen DeBoer. I still believe in the majority of this staff. I don't think the whole organization needs to be burned down. I just think it needs to be, a lot of it needs to be very much evaluated and tinkered with, because there are definitely some holes that Alabama and Kalen DeBoer needs to address in this upcoming offseason.
Hey, that's about all I got for us today.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one more question. This is,
Mhm.
and it just shows you how I think, man, when you have such poor play at quarterback, that these are the guys who struggle. And I just want to hear, maybe you think going into next year, got Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, and Emmanuel Henderson.
Mhm.
Start one, bench one, put one in the portal.
I'm starting Kendrick Law, I'm benching E-Man, and I'm cutting Kobe. Kobe, that effort that he gave on the first interception, I know Jalen Milroe shouldn't have thrown that ball 100%, but the effort that Kobe Prentice gave was pathetic. And credit to him, he took full accountability after the game and said that wasn't on Jalen Milroe, that was on him for the poor block attempt that he had. Credit to that young man for that. But I think he has not been the same since he had that concussion against Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
So I would. Kendrick Law has a ton of upside to me. I think he needs to become more of a focal point of the offense going forward. I love Emmanuel Henderson's upside, and I'm hoping with a quarterback that can actually get him the ball consistently, he would be able to really flourish.
Just quickly before we get out of here,
Mhm.
Emmanuel Henderson, where are you putting him? Where does he actually get good quality reps?
Mhm.
All things considered, where does he fall the best?
I mean, I think I think he'd be a good outside receiver to pair. I think Jeremy Bernard, I don't know if he has another year left or not. I hope he does, because I think Jeremy has shown some really good things this year. I just think, again,
Yeah.
he's been underutilized because of the shift in philosophy when the offensive coaching staff figured out we can't air the ball out. We're going to have to just be a run heavy team and live and die by it. And we died by it last night. But I think he can be a nice number 2 or number 3 guy, kind of a rotation. I don't ever see him being, a Ryan Williams type.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of other talent in that receiver room with Caleb Odom, a guy like Jalen Hale who hadn't even played this year,
Yeah.
who flashed a ton last year. I think he can be another vertical threat that can really stretch the defense. So a lot of talent in that room, and they're bringing in Watson Brooks, who I think is going to be an absolute stud. That kid. If you haven't watched this film, everybody go do yourself a favor and watch it, because he is a special talent. So I feel good about that room going forward. You just got to get somebody that can distribute the football to them.
Yeah. No, that's I mean that's the missing link here, truly.
Mm-hmm.
And you see, I mean, even Kalen DeBoer, you've seen him, and I don't know if you do this with wide receivers, but he has no problem playing multiple guys. You look at the defensive
Mm-hmm.
side of the ball. He
Mm-hmm.
wants, guys getting touches, getting experience.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, our running back room has not resembled that philosophy just yet,
Yeah.
but maybe it will. Hey guys, Hampton, you want to give us our final word? You got one more thing you want to say
I
too?
was going to say one more
Yeah,
thing,
go for
just
it.
quickly. Like, if you made it this far, we appreciate it
Mhm.
very much that you have. And I just want to speak to Alabama fans. This has been a very disappointing year. This is the worst season that Alabama has had since 2007. I'm going to commit to you all and to you, Chase. Even if Alabama loses against Auburn, I'm going to be completely calm next Saturday, because it will be over. Because this era of quarterback play will be over. I expect it at this point, so I can't be disappointed by something that I expect to happen. I'm going to be pulling for them, be pulling for every individual at the Tide on when they play in the Iron Bowl, but we are one game away from this being over, and I'm very happy about that. And that's my final word.
I love it. Hey, I am headed to. We're recording this on Sunday. Driving all the way back to Alabama tomorrow for Thanksgiving. The thought did cross my mind that I might cancel my official visit to Alabama after that performance last night. I mean, I was hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I called Hampton. We got a chance to talk during the game at halftime. It's just like, dude, something's got to change. And
No, it was after that first pick.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey guys, again, thank you. Like Hampton said, thank you for if you've listened this far. I mean, it really does mean a lot. And we would have this conversation. Whether again, I love to always just mention that we love talking ball. We love Alabama, even when it's hard to watch. And really, we're in this point where I think a lot of us Alabama fans, we don't really know how to like think through this and process just how abysmal some of this play has been. But hey, we got each other, right? And so,
Come on now.
hey, that's what it looks like to be a part of the Pigskin Cafe. So, hey, we know that you might have listened to this as you are driving back home for Thanksgiving or you're out and about. Again, just thank you for taking the time. And we do hope that this reaction video lands well for you. Maybe you agree with some of it. If you don't, that's okay too. You can leave a comment. We'll try to get back to you. But I do feel like some of the stuff we've been saying we've been kind of proved right, which I'm sad for,
We've been spot on all year about this.
Yes.
All year.
Sadly. And so, hey guys, if you made it this far again, if you haven't subscribed or liked the channel, I mean, truly, it really would go far. Let us know that what we're doing, it helps the algorithm. It really does help other people see it. Share it with a friend. Let us know if you agree or disagree. But the Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next time, y'all, chew on that. We'll see y'all soon.